Have you ever been judged solely on the way you look? This is the story of Hannah Parker, a gentle and honest woman whose evening in Boston took a turn she never expected. It is a story about standing by who you are, even when the world seems to measure you only by appearances. On an ordinary cool evening in downtown Boston, when the soft glow of streetlights danced on busy sidewalks and the hum of city traffic filled the air, Hannah stepped out with a quiet determination. At 34, she wore a simple beige cardigan paired with well-worn jeans, clothes that spoke of comfort and honesty rather than fashion trends. Hannah was not one to worry about designer labels. She had always believed that true worth came from the heart and the work one did. Tonight, however, she carried a secret hope. For 14 long years, she had shared her life with Michael Parker, a man whose name many knew for his work in technology, but whose kindness and steady character were known only to those close to him. As their anniversary approached, Hannah planned a special surprise, one that meant more than any lavish celebration. She intended to secure a table at the Crystal Palace, the city's most exclusive restaurant, a place where she and Michael had once enjoyed a memorable first date filled with promise and hope. Earlier that day, after a fulfilling session at her weekly pottery class, where her fingers became dusted with the soft remnants of clay as she shaped new creations, Hannah decided she would not change into more formal wear. The reservation she sought was scheduled for the following Friday, and she believed that her genuine self, as simple as it was, would carry more meaning than any ornate outfit. With her heart full of quiet determination, she set off toward the Crystal Palace. As she walked along the sidewalk, the restaurant's grand facade came into view. The tall glass doors and expansive windows bathed the entrance in warm golden light. Inside, one could see a gentle glow reflecting off crystal chandeliers and admire tables set with immaculate white linens, a setting that attracted Boston's well-known guests who usually dressed to impress. With steady steps, Hannah pushed open the heavy glass door and entered the elegant lobby. At the reception desk stood Victoria, a woman dressed in a smart dark suit whose eyes quickly noted Hannah's casual attire. Victoria greeted her with a polite good evening, but her tone was curt and businesslike. In a soft but clear voice, Hannah said, "I would like to make a reservation for next Friday." Her words carried the quiet hope of someone who was planning a meaningful celebration. Yet as Victoria skimmed through the reservation book, her face remained unchanged. "I'm sorry," she said in a measured tone, "but we are fully booked for the next 3 months." Unwilling to give up, Hannah added, "This is for our anniversary, a very important day for my husband and me." At that very moment, a man in an expensive suit stepped forward from behind the desk. It was Richard Hammond, known in Boston for his influential status and frequent appearances in local society news. With barely a glance in Hannah's direction, he began to complain that his usual table had not been prepared as it should be. He mentioned a specific reserved space by name and spoke with an air of entitlement that made it clear he expected a certain type of guest. His low voice, full of dismissive remarks, was heard well by those standing nearby. Hannah's cheeks burned with unexpected heat as she absorbed the quiet judgment in his words. Yet she attempted to speak with calm resolve. "I understand it is a busy evening, but I am only here to secure a reservation for our anniversary," she said in a steady tone. Even as she spoke, Victoria's expression remained firm, as if her decision had already been made. When Hannah reached into her purse and offered to leave a deposit to show her sincerity, Victoria interrupted with a flat dismissal. "No deposit will change our policy." The implication was clear. The rules were not about one's intentions or personal worth, but rather about fitting a specific image. Richard, seizing the moment, leaned in closer and muttered under his breath a remark that was meant to be heard by those nearby. His words carried the notion that it was unusual, even improper, for someone from the street to attempt to make a reservation at a place such as the Crystal Palace. His tone left little doubt that in his eyes, only those who looked the part were welcome here. Gradually, the surrounding guests began to murmur. Some exchanged low chuckles, while others cast side glances that were hard to ignore. It was as if the entire room had suddenly decided to pass judgment solely on what Hannah wore that evening. Before Hannah could muster another word to explain herself, the atmosphere shifted even further when Elaine, the restaurant's manager, appeared at the reception. With a face set in stern determination, Elaine addressed Victoria and then turned toward Hannah, saying in a tone that brooked no argument, "Madam, I must ask you to leave. You are causing a disturbance." Those words struck Hannah like a cold gust of wind. Shock and hurt filled her as she tried to protest gently, "I am simply here to make a reservation for our anniversary. I did not mean to cause any trouble." But her quiet plea was overwhelmed by Elaine's strict declaration of policy. At that moment, a young employee named Thomas was summoned. With a hesitant step, he approached Hannah and extended his arm as a signal that it was time to leave. His eyes betrayed his own discomfort with the situation. As Hannah was led toward the exit, the hushed voices of onlookers and a few barely concealed laughs followed her every step. The cruelty of being turned away for simply wearing what was comfortable, a wardrobe chosen for practicality and a humble way of life, felt like a heavy blow. Each step away from the entrance was filled with both the sting of public judgment and the quiet sorrow of knowing that her worth was being measured by something so superficial. Outside, in the crisp night air, Hannah paused for a long moment to catch her breath. The coolness on her skin felt like a small comfort against the warmth of humiliation that still burned inside her. With a shaking hand, she reached for her phone as if to call someone, a friend, a confidant, or perhaps Michael. But then a familiar sound broke through her thoughts. The smooth sound of an engine, steady and powerful, approached from around the corner. Slowly, she turned her head and saw a sleek, black Porsche 911 glide to a stop under the glow of the streetlights. Its polished surface shimmered, and every line of its design spoke of quiet assurance and understated strength. In that moment, the arrival of that impressive car stirred within Hannah a glimmer of hope. It was a reminder that even if one door slammed shut harshly, another might open to reveal that she was not alone. If this story of an unexpected test and a quiet stand for one's truth resonates with you even a little, please subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Every story shared matters, and by joining our community, you help remind the world that real worth lies far beyond what meets the eye. The cool night air was brisk as the sound of a powerful engine grew louder. From around the corner, a sleek black Porsche 911 came to a graceful stop. Its polished surface caught the streetlights and drew a sharp contrast against the somber mood that had settled outside the restaurant. Standing on the sidewalk, Hannah's eyes widened as she recognized the car that symbolized Michael Parker's steady support. A reminder that no matter how harsh the night had been, she was not alone. Within moments, Michael emerged from the car, dressed smartly in a midnight blue tuxedo that was understated yet confident. He carried himself with a natural ease. His presence immediately shifted the atmosphere as he walked toward the entrance of the Crystal Palace. Each step he took was measured, conveying both quiet determination and unwavering care. Michael's arrival was not marked by grand fanfare or loud declarations, but by the gentle assertion of a man who stood behind his principles and the person he loved. Inside the restaurant, The staff and a few remaining guests watched as Victoria and Elaine exchanged tense glances behind the reception desk. Michael's entrance disrupted the routine they had tried to enforce earlier, and a sudden hush fell over the room. Approaching the reception area with calm but deliberate steps, Michael caught the eye of Victoria. "Good evening," he said in a clear, even voice. "I am here to meet my wife, Hannah Parker." His tone carried a quiet authority that could not be ignored. For a moment, the lightness of conversation died down entirely. Victoria fumbled with the reservation log, her previously steady expression now wavering, as she searched for any record of a reservation under the name Parker. Michael continued, "Hannah was here earlier to secure a table for our anniversary. I believe there has been some misunderstanding." His words cut through the tension, and those listening sensed that a wrong had been done that needed correction. Richard Hammond, who had earlier made his disdain known with biting remarks, shifted in his seat. His face, once confident and dismissive, now wore an expression of uncertainty as he observed Michael's calm intervention. Elaine, still standing by the front desk, tried to muster her usual composure. "Sir, there appears to be an issue with the reservation," she said with a forced politeness, though her eyes betrayed a hint of apprehension. Michael's gaze never wavered. "I understand that your establishment has protocols," he replied evenly, "but a reservation for our anniversary is not a matter of style. It is a celebration of a life shared, a memory of a first date, and a promise for the future. I ask that you look closely at what is right, rather than simply rely on appearances." His tone was firm yet measured, speaking not with anger, but with an insistence that what had happened was unjust. At that moment, a murmur ran through the room. Several diners exchanged quiet, thoughtful looks. A few of the longtime patrons who had witnessed the earlier events shifted in their seats, their expressions softening as they realized the gravity of the situation. Even Thomas, the young staff member who had earlier accompanied Hannah out, appeared troubled as he stood nearby, his eyes downcast in regret. Michael stepped a little closer to the reception desk, his voice steady. "My wife, Hannah, is a kind and honest person. Tonight she came to reserve a table, not to dine, but to create a memory that is dear to both of us. Her simple clothes are not a sign of lacking value. In fact, they speak of a life lived with honesty and heart." His words resonated with those who had witnessed the earlier dismissal, and in the silence that followed, it was as if every person in the room began to reconsider what they had witnessed. Victoria's face showed signs of discomfort as she flipped through the reservation cards. Elaine struggled to regain control of the situation while still holding on to the restaurant's policies. "There has clearly been a mix-up," Victoria began hesitantly, her voice softening, "but I must maintain our standards." Michael's gaze was unwavering as he replied, "I respectfully disagree. Standards must always consider who the person is, not just how they appear on the surface." A brief pause filled the space between them, the tension hanging thick in the air. Richard Hammond shifted again in his seat, and even Elaine's posture seemed to falter under the weight of Michael's sincere conviction. As Michael continued to speak, his tone grew steadily more passionate, while never losing its respectful quality. "I ask you to review your policy and the way you treat guests. A celebration such as our anniversary is not defined by a designer label or an expensive suit, but by the feelings we share and the memories we create. Tonight I hope that you will see beyond the surface and find the decency to treat my wife and all your guests with the respect they deserve." The room remained silent as Michael's words echoed softly. Some diners met each other's eyes and nodded. Others leaned forward in their seats, clearly moved by the honesty of the moment. After what felt like an eternity, Victoria looked up at Michael with a troubled expression, her features drawn with the realization that rigid policies might sometimes lead to unintentional harm. "It seems," she said slowly, "that we have made an error." She glanced nervously at Elaine, who offered only a brief, silent acknowledgement. At that point, Elaine's tone lost its earlier sharpness, and she said, "Mr. Parker, please accept our apologies. We will do everything we can to make this right." Even the previously dismissive Richard Hammond now remained silent, the earlier confidence having evaporated under the weight of the evening's events. Michael accepted the apology quietly but firmly, his eyes never leaving Victoria's as he spoke. "This is not just about a reservation. It is about ensuring that every person who walks through your door is treated with fairness and decency, regardless of what they choose to wear. Today my wife was made to feel less than she is, and that is something no one should ever experience." Meanwhile, Hannah, who had witnessed the entire confrontation from just outside the entrance, felt a mix of relief and lingering sorrow. The harsh words she had endured were slowly being met with correction, and she found herself drawing strength from Michael's calm determination. With a soft exhale, she stepped inside the restaurant where a few curious, supportive faces now greeted her arrival. Michael gently took her hand, and together they walked through the front door, leaving behind the sting of earlier judgment. Outside, the cool night had a way of refreshing the spirit, and the soft murmur of the restaurant now carried a note of reflection. In a quiet corner, a long-time guest offered a kind smile to the couple, while another diner whispered a word of comfort. The experience had become more than just a personal trial for Hannah. It had sparked a quiet reevaluation among those present about the true meaning of respect and worth. As the evening unfolded further, Michael and Hannah found a private moment away from the main bustle. In a quiet lounge area within the restaurant, softly lit by warm light, Michael and Hannah sat side by side. Michael's voice was low and steady as he spoke. "Hannah, tonight reminded me of what is important. It is not the way we look, but the way we care for each other that counts. I have always admired your strength and the honesty with which you live your life." Hannah, still shaken but comforted by his words, reached out and squeezed his hand in silent thanks. Here, in that small moment of shared understanding, the harshness of the day was slowly mended by the gentle power of compassion. A few diners, having witnessed the events, began to discuss quietly among themselves the meaning of what had happened. Their discussions were not loud or disruptive. They were soft reflections on how a person's character should be measured by the content of their heart, rather than their outward appearance. Some even murmured that perhaps the restaurant might need to rethink how they welcomed guests in the future. Outside the dining room, the dim glow of the streetlights and the steady presence of the black Porsche served as a reminder to Michael and Hannah that they were part of a larger world, one where kindness and fairness could still prevail, even in the face of harsh judgment. As the night grew deeper, the couple left the restaurant with a sense of quiet triumph. The incident, although deeply hurtful, had become a turning point, a moment that many would remember as a reminder that all people deserve to be seen and valued for who they truly are. Before ending the night, if this story of standing up against unfair